Evening, everyone. This is the appropriate way to start ending the year with more Zooms, right? It is my privilege to convene this year's induction ceremony of the Alpha Delta of New York chapter of Phi Beta Kappa. I'm Alice Rutkowski. I'm this year's president of the chapter. And on behalf of all chapter members, I'd like to welcome our inductees, their guests, and of course, those who are already members of the chapter. I'd also like to extend a special welcome to Denise Pad Battles, the president of the college, and Stacy Robertson, our provost, who are also members of Phi Beta Kappa and were able to join us this evening. We're delighted to have you. You probably already saw them on my very exciting opening slide, but a few logistical things before we get started. Professor Doug Baldwin is going to paste a copy of the program into the chat. And so when that appears, you'll be able to download it. We are going to be recording this event. I've already started recording it so that we can post it to our website for those who were unable to attend. I'll do my best to remember to send out the link to all of you in case you have a family member that wants to watch it after the fact. If for any reason you don't want to be portrayed on camera, you can leave your camera off, totally fine. We encourage folks to keep their cameras on if you're able to. Typically, you know, in the before times, this ceremony happened in a banquet hall and the actual induction happens after we've all shared dinner together. Zoom can't recreate that kind of intimacy and warmth, but we can get closer if we can at least all see each other. So for those of you who are able to have your cameras on, I'd be really grateful. Everyone knows this already because it's the first rule of Zoom, but please make sure you're muted unless otherwise noted. The program is in the chat now if folks want to grab it and download a copy. You might want to configure your windows so that chat is alongside the display of participants. We encourage everyone on the call, students, friends, parents, guests, faculty, staff, to make use of the chat function throughout the ceremony. You may want to change your display to speaker view so that it features the person speaking. Obviously, we have a ton of people on the call and there'll be a couple different speakers over the course of our fairly short evening together. Before we go further, I want to do the obligatory thank yous. I want to thank everyone who helped with this year's election and those who are responsible for planning this virtual ceremony. Treasurer Celia Easton and Vice President Sherry Larson Rhodes were instrumental in our planning, and our secretary, she's the one you all know, the one who's been emailing you nonstop for the last 5 weeks. Professor Lisa Smith is probably the most important person here, actually, for getting everything happening, for all the logistics. This year's election committee included Doug Baldwin, Jenny Apple, Dory Farthing, Paul Pacheco, Carly West, and myself. We have such extraordinary students here at Geneseo, and it's enormously inspiring to put together each year's list of inductees. It's also enormously challenging, though, so I want to thank all the folks who worked on this. In case the students are interested, I was just going to say like 3 sentences about our selection process. You might be curious that you got this magical email out of the blue that was like, hey, you got selected for this thing. The way it works at all colleges and universities, so Phi Beta Kappa and Professor Baldwin's going to tell you a little bit more about the history in a moment. Phi Beta Kappa is entirely by invitation only. You can't apply to be in it. Most schools our size basically use an algorithm, right? They have someone in the registrar's office crunch numbers, and then the folks with the highest GPAs in liberal arts majors tend to be selected. Here at Geneseo, we consider every eligible student individually rather than base it off GPA. So of course, everyone on this call is very successful in their classes, right? You're here because you perform really well all the time. But if you were offered admission, it means most likely one of your professors wrote a detailed letter about you and the ways in which you go above and beyond simply getting good grades. It described the ways in which you all have a wide range of majors and minors. A lot of you have like several of both. You sought out opportunities for independent research. You served in leadership roles on campus. Basically, you did really difficult things, and you were more interested in doing difficult things than simply getting good grades. So I hope, you know, it's always nice to be told that you're special, but we spend a ton of time making sure we're really trying to value and recognize all of the ways in which students are excellent at Geneseo, and there are so many excellent students. Now the Vice President of the chapter, Dr. Doug Baldwin of Math, is going to offer a brief history of the society and our chapter. Doug, unmute yourself.
Thank you, Alice, both for introducing me and reminding me about the right Zoom etiquette. Let me make one small correction. I'm actually the past president of the chapter. Sherry Larson Rhodes is the vice president. But with that said, I'm also the stand-in for the historian. So let me tell you a little bit about Phi Beta Kappa. Phi Beta Kappa is the nation's oldest and most widely known academic honor society, having been established during the American Revolution. In fact, on December 5th, 1776, a group of 5 young men studying at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, met to create a secret society that would be both intellectual and social in purpose. The president's greeting to new members in 1779 reads in part, "Here you are to indulge in matters of speculation, that freedom of inquiry that ever dispels the clouds of falsehood by the radiant sunshine of truth." In their covert meetings, the members seriously debated a host of questions, such as whether a wise state hath any interest nearer at heart than the education of the youth, and it certainly doesn't. Soon afterward, chapters were established at Yale and Harvard, ensuring that Phi Beta Kappa would survive the arrival of General Cornwallis's troops at Williamsburg. A little over a century later, more than 25 branches of the society were in existence, and it was felt that a national structure was needed to bring together the scattered chapters into some uniformity. In 1883, the organization known as the United Chapters of Phi Beta Kappa was founded. It has its headquarters today in Washington, D.C. 8 years before the national structure was founded, in 1875, Phi Beta Kappa enlarged its membership to include 2 women, Ellen Hamilton and Leda Mason. And in 1877, the first African-American student, a former slave named George Washington Henderson, was elected. In 1905, the first African-American woman, Jessie Redmond Fawcett, joined this elite group. The society now has over 500,000 living members, elected over the years by the now 290 chapters at colleges and universities throughout the country. In addition, more than 50 local alumni associations lend the society their support and provide members with the opportunity for a lifelong relationship with Phi Beta Kappa and its activities and goals at the community level. The Phi Beta Kappa chapter at Geneseo was created in 2004 after a 3-year application process. Many members of the faculty and staff worked tirelessly to make the establishment of our chapter possible. I and Dr. Tom Greenfield, who's also here tonight, managed the application process locally and also traveled to Phi Beta Kappa's Washington National Office to represent our campus during the 3-year application process. None of this work would have been possible without then president of the college, Chris Dahl's, enthusiastic and generous support. With our success, we broke a nearly 3-decade trend during which no new SUNY Phi Beta Kappa chapters had been approved. We cannot say for certain why this long period without new chapters at SUNY institutions occurred, but it appears to have been linked to problems within the SUNY system during the 1970s, which cast a negative light on SUNY as a whole with some Phi Beta Kappa chapters. Despite this hurdle, we received very positive feedback from the reviewers, and many Phi Beta Kappa members from other chapters proved to be strong advocates for our application. On May 12, 2004, President Dahl received a letter of congratulations from Calvin Butts III, one of the nation's best-known civil rights activists and a colleague SUNY president at Old Westbury. In this letter, Mr. Butts noted that SUNY Geneseo is the first non-doctoral undergraduate college in the SUNY system to establish a Phi Beta Kappa chapter. Because only about 10% of our nation's institutions of higher learning have Phi Beta Kappa chapters, this was a remarkable academic milestone for both Geneseo and for the SUNY system. Geneseo is still the only undergraduate college in SUNY to shelter a Phi Beta Kappa chapter. Since then, the Phi Beta Kappa chapter at Geneseo has worked to create opportunities for members to engage in social and intellectual activities with both the student and faculty members of the chapter. The chapter has also made strides to establish its presence in the larger Phi Beta Kappa network. In 2016, for example, our chapter was the national winner of Phi Beta Kappa's Keys to Action Week Friendly Chapter Competition, which was held in conjunction with the 240th anniversary of the Society's founding in December of 1776. Several of our students have also been awarded internships and other recognitions through Phi Beta Kappa's national programs. We frequently participate in Phi Beta Kappa's Visiting Scholars program, as we did this past year with the visit by Dr. Martin Grubela of the University of Illinois. Phi Beta Kappa ceased to be a secret society over 150 years ago. Today, its symbols and purposes are well known. These purposes were summarized by one of the society's most eminent members, Charles Evan Hughes, a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who said, and I quote, "The particular interest of Phi Beta Kappa is in liberal education. This means the development by careful training of the capacity to appreciate what has been done and thought, the ability to make worthwhile appraisals of achievements, doctrines, theories, and proposals. It is liberal because it emancipates. It signifies freedom from the tyranny of ignorance and, from what is worse, the dominion of folly. Phi Beta Kappa holds aloft the old banner of scholarship. To the students who have turned aside from easier paths, and by their talent and fidelity have proven themselves to be worthy, it gives the fitting recognition of a special distinction." So congratulations to all of you who have earned that special distinction. And I will turn things back to Alice.
Thank you so much, Doug. If you don't mind, can you put the program in the chat one more time for more recent arrivals?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you. The next section of our program is our featured speaker. Each year we ask a student who is inducted into the chapter the previous year as a junior to share some remarks about their experiences at Geneseo and beyond. I am delighted to introduce tonight's student speaker, Rachel McLaughlin. Rachel is a graduating senior with majors in mathematics and English literature, as well as minors in the college honors program and socio-medical sciences. She has leadership positions in Pride Alliance, Voices for Planned Parenthood, and the Geneseo chapter for the Association of Women in Mathematics. She also sits on the LGBTQ working group. Starting this fall, Rachel will be pursuing her Master's of Public Health at Columbia University. Please welcome Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. It's really great to see you all. I'm so honored to be speaking to you this evening. Dr. Rakowski just now introduced me along with my majors and minors, and you might be thinking to yourself, that's too many things. And you would be right, but I am incapable of casually enjoying a subject area. The only thing that stopped me from adding a medieval studies or a women and gender studies minor was time. When I tell people about my double majors, I get the same handful of responses every time. But one that I find really interesting is, oh, do you want to be a teacher? And my answer to that is no, not really. I worked at a summer camp for about 8 years, and although I really loved it, I think maybe the best way to say this is that it gave me such an appreciation for people who do formal education as a career. Truly, full respect, I just know that it isn't for me. But what I find so interesting about the question being the first response to finding out that I do English and math is that for a lot of people, the only time they've really thought about those subject areas together or at all has been in grade school. And so the only career they can really think of for me is education. And part of why I really love my double major is that math and English are both incredibly flexible skill sets. Which is great, given that I'm actually heading down a career path that isn't fully in one discipline or the other. So in the fall, I'll be attending grad school, pursuing my Master's of Public Health with a concentration in sexuality, sexual and reproductive health. But even though that may seem very different from what I've done in undergrad, I still found my way to public health through both fields, along with my activities outside of the classroom. One of my other favorite things that I've been asked since I came to Geneseo is, oh, you're a math major. Do you just do calculus for 4 years? Which I find very funny, partly because it's not totally wrong. I have had to do a lot of calculus. But what I think that gets to is that for a lot of people, it's hard to think of math outside those grade school contexts in which we were first introduced to it. I remember Dr. Jeff Johannes saying my freshman year that in middle and high school, you climb the math mountain and calculus is at the peak. But once you get up there, what you can actually see is that math is a mountain range. There are so many different disciplines that use mathematics. And I think even as a math major, I tended to forget about that. So the quantitative and analytical skills that we develop over our time in math aren't only applicable in math-centric jobs. In fact, part of how I got to my interest in pursuing public health was through my work with Dr. Leary in the math department on modeling biological systems. So while math is about quantitative skills, English is about critically engaging with language. I'm not really a fan of rhetoric about like finding hidden meanings or unlocking a text, but I do think that language can be incredibly revealing of cultural structures and attitudes. So over the years, I've found my niche in literary analysis, much to the pain and suffering of those around me, because I just won't stop talking about it, to be medical humanities. So how cultural structures and theories of medicine are revealed and reinforced through literature. I'm especially interested in how cultural ideas of gender, sexuality, and morality are woven into bodies on and off the page. My recurring interest in those topics actually pushed me to add my minor in sociomedical sciences, since I knew I was interested in health, but I wanted more of a social science perspective to sort of round out how I was approaching those discussions. Of course, it hasn't just been my academic work that got me to my interest in public health. I've also been a part of Pride Alliance and Voices for Planned Parenthood on campus for my entire time at Geneseo. My work in Voices in Pride has cultivated my engagement with these topics, giving me the chance to facilitate discussions on many issues related to gender, sexuality, and health. I've participated in these organizations as a general member and in leadership positions for my entire college career because I find the opportunities they provide for education and dialogue incredibly fulfilling. And as much as I disagree with the spiel our tour guides give about how easy it is to start a new club, I do think that the opportunities that student organizations offer for finding a community, hobbies, career interests, and many other things are really central to a good college experience. I'm so grateful to have found these groups, and personally, I've found my extracurricular activities to be central to developing both myself and my interests, especially when combined with my activities in the classroom. And finally, one last thing I know that many of us have probably thought, maybe even voiced aloud, is, will I ever need to know or use this in real life? And I totally understand where that's coming from. I definitely know that I've said it before, but I also think that's why a liberal arts education is so important. So I ended up doing both English and math because for me, both disciplines are ultimately about critical thinking, pattern recognition, building logical arguments, and recognizing ambiguity. When I think about the real life implied by questions like that, I can't see many situations in which the quantitative and linguistic skills I've been talking about aren't necessary. More than that, I think the point of the liberal arts is to foster a kind of perpetual learning, giving us the skills to confidently and competently engage with many disciplines through putting us in environments and subjects we may not be used to. I really respect the movement I know is happening in the college right now on reevaluating general education requirements through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we can already see the sort of real world impact of gen eds before we've even left school. I'm not surprised about students criticizing weakly worded emails when we're all required to take an introductory writing and critical thinking course. I really do appreciate the opportunities I've had here at Geneseo, both in the classroom and out, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's next, how the skills and interests I've developed here will help me down the line as I try to create more effective health education strategies and improve illness experience through recognizing the value of language. Just to finish up, I'll say congratulations, everyone. It's been wonderful to speak to you today. And to those of you graduating, good luck. I'm really proud of us for pushing through, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We're so grateful for your commitment to Geneseo and your willingness to share your story with us tonight. I really appreciate it. those of us in the faculty who are members of the chapter had a lot of discussions about how we were going to make this ceremony work on Zoom. It sort of probably just feels so much like what you've been doing all semester, right? And in the before times, we really tried to make it something special. So we did our best in planning. The most important part of the night in the before times is the part where we read all the names, and everyone, all of our amazing graduates would walk up one by one to get a congratulations, to get a handshake, to get the all-important certificate, and maybe even a hug, right? If someone up at the podium knew you, right? We were often moved to congratulate students that we knew well in that particular way. To state the obvious, it's still not safe to gather as the way we might before, all sitting closely together in actual physical space, in a banquet hall, talking and laughing and eating. My hope, I know all of our hopes, is that this kind of gathering will soon become possible, right? Maybe next spring, next year's graduates will be in that banquet hall. If everyone gets vaccinated and guidance from public health officials suggests that this is safe. But we also didn't just want tonight's ceremony to be just people talking at you. So for example, we decided not to do Zoom webinar. We wanted to have the messiness of everyone on the screen together. We're not sure how this is going to go, but there's going to be one moment where I'm going to ask you all of just not everyone, but just all the inductees to unmute themselves and say a few words at the same time. We're hoping that joyful chaos is going to be the result. Don't unmute yet. I'm going to tell you exactly the moment. Because next up we have this pledge thing, right? So we have the promise, don't do anything yet, I will tell you. In years past, we would say, will the candidates for membership please stand? Don't do that, right? We won't, I know, oh my God, so many people moved. That was very kind of you all. Don't do that, we won't be able to see you all anymore. Instead, I'm gonna modify it for this evening, and forgive me if I sound like your mom. Maybe just everyone sit up a little straighter, the candidates, like, there we go. Okay, so it's sort of like standing on Zoom. Okay, so I'm about to read the pledge. Don't panic. This is not one of those ones where I read a really long thing and you'd have to repeat it and you get lost, right? It's very simple. I will tell you when to unmute yourself, and all you're gonna all have to say at the same time is "we do," but not yet. We're almost there. Okay, here's the official thing. In accordance with the rules of this chapter, and in consequence of our good opinion of your intellectual and moral character, supported by your record of high attainment at this institution, you have been selected as worthy of becoming members of Phi Beta Kappa. Your names have been submitted to the scrutiny of the constitutional electors of this chapter and have met with their approval. You have been formally notified of your election and have signified your desire to be enrolled as members of this ancient and honorable society. Therefore, I now inquire, do you solemnly promise that you will be true and faithful to Phi Beta Kappa, uphold its standards, obey its laws, and seek to reflect credit upon your affiliation with this venerable fellowship of learners? Okay, all the students inductees, unmute yourself. If so, answer with, "We do."
We do.
Nicely done, very good. I know, not quite the same as all being in the same physical space. Okay, please mute yourself again. You may be seated or slouch again, right? So if you're in a less comfortable position, you may slouch again. Now would be the presentation of certificates. Your actual physical certificates, Professor Lisa Smith will mail these to whatever address you specified when you filled out your form. If you're left with any questions about how that will work, she urges you to email her and follow up if you have any questions. I am going to read folks' names one at a time because that's amazing and you all are spectacular, and it will only take a couple minutes and we can all celebrate each other. And so it's not the same as walking up to the front of the room, but it's worthwhile doing, right? Given how hard you've all worked. So I am going to share the screen and we'll have slides so that you can look at everyone's name. We've got their majors and minors up there. Please stay muted for this portion. Please, folks, use the chat for this, right? Celebrate your friends. If you have family members here, they can post. Use the chat and however you'd like to celebrate names as we go by. So I'm going to go in the order of students who were elected as juniors last year. So those folks are graduating seniors. then current juniors, and then seniors. And then within those categories, it's alphabetical order, but it doesn't matter because you don't have to walk anywhere. So you don't have to like listen for your name in that nervous way that you might have to if we were all in the same room together. Okay, so let me get us back on our, is that what I want? Really, what would it be if we didn't have, I know, if we didn't have a problem sharing the screen, what would it be a Zoom even? Okay, there's no sound, so we're all good. I'm going to minimize your lovely faces. Here we have juniors elected in 2020. Jimmy Connolly, Brooke Dimitri, Rachel Ferraloro, Norberto Jaramillo, Emily Curl, Emma Mandela, Julia McGough, Rachel McLaughlin, Nina Mustico, Catherine Peter, Liam Peterson, Sydney Schmidt, now we've got juniors elected this year. Jillian Berardi, Sarah Fudlowy, Riley Grossman, Margaret Hewitt, Caitlin Mirren, Holly Moore, and Tara Peter. Okay, seniors. Molly Ashton, Jada Atwood, Ezekiah Backus, Kira Barron, Ariana Barone, Emma Barrett, Caitlin Bertliff, Alexandra Bloss, Elena Bordone, Daniel Borg, Emma Brune, Jessica Buffamonte, Alexandra Butler, Nicole Callahan, Margot Carmel, Karen Caswell, Usman Chowdhury, Caitlin Church, Kirsten Colvin, Emily Cook, Margaret Dean. Josh DeBell. Madeline Dunn. Robert Economou. Bryce Embling. Austin Feasley. Florian Filkins. Taryn Franciosa. Sydney Freeman. Melisha Gatlin. Sakura Hamakaze. Isabella Higgins. Olivia Hilt. Keith Hurley. Christina Interlicia. Wadey Jacoby. Kylie Kinney. Guosing Lin. Lara Mangino. Leslie Mast. Colleen McCullen. Luce Melo. Allison Menendez. Ben Michalak. Rachel Milstein. Johanna Moores. Thomas Mossy. Monica Mounts. Drew O'Neill. Fumitsuga Ogura. Marguerite Parfit. Sophia Piazza. Jessica Pisano. Emily Polizzi. Sarah Pop. Adrian Porter. Alexandra Ronaldo. Erin Roddy. Bridget Rin. Haley Saunders. Raina Schoen Thomas. Olivia Schoenfeld. Samantha Seeger. Zenya Seitzinger. Awab Shaukat. Matthew Senior. Katie Singleton. Laura Skriptik, Olivia Smith, William Snyder, Noel Stasso, Catherine Steele, Leah Tiberi, Jillian Todd, Hannah Yushiro, Brian Vargas, Olivia Whitmarsh, Laura Williams, and Rebecca Williamson. So it seems as if people have been congratulating everyone all along, but let's give everyone a hand, everyone inducted. The beginning of, well, and then the walkthrough graduation is tomorrow, right? The beginning of all the graduation week events. Maybe you've been going to some other things. So in conclusion, will the inductees please like either rise or sit up straighter? By election of the chapter and by your assent to its pledge, the Society's requirements for initiation are fully satisfied. I, therefore, in the presence of these members of the Society, declare you to be members of the Alpha Delta chapter of Phi Beta Kappa in the state of New York, authorize you to wear its key as a badge and to participate in its meetings. Congratulations, everyone. You are now lifetime members of the nation's oldest academic honor society. I urge you to be active in its programs and community alumni associations, support its endeavors and lofty goals, and be a working advocate for the liberal arts in our society. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the chapter. Again, congratulations. So that is the end of our official ceremony. I hope you will be able to see your friends and maybe your family in safe ways to celebrate. Congratulations so much. I know there's a few juniors who weren't graduating, but the vast majority of the students on this call are graduating. It was an enormous amount of work to get to this place. And know that we as an institution see that work. We value you, especially in the astonishingly different ways you've all brought excellence to the college. So thank you so much. Congratulations and have a good rest of your graduation week. Good luck on finals and final classes, everyone. Good night.